The Great Halloween Bloody Arm Escapade. I'm sure that all of us have pulled a few pranks in our time, especially around Halloween. In eastern Kentucky, they used to take their Halloween pranks pretty seriously. It was nothing to find entire trees across the road or to have sugar poured into your gas tank. Now, these kinds of pranks are just plain mean. Ornery is how the folks around here would describe it, but as kids, we never set out to actually hurt anyone. We just wanted to have a little fun. There was the usual toilet paper rolling of houses and trees, but aside from the excitement created by the possibility of getting caught, this maneuver soon lost its appeal. Our high school English teacher was a fellow by the name of Sam Denny. Now, Mr. Denny was a no-nonsense type who held our feet to the fire and always demanded the very best from his students. When I became a teacher some years later, I realized what an important character trait he was building in us. But at the time, he just seemed intent on making life miserable for us, especially those of us like me who were prone to settle for just getting by. Naturally, with this reputation, Mr. Denny was the butt of many Halloween pranks. Two that I can remember are worth mentioning. One year, these almost delinquents, who will remain anonymous, found several nice fresh piles of dog droppings, and as soon as it was dark, carefully set them outside Mr. Denny's front door. The collective pile was covered with toilet paper and set on fire. The culprits then rang the doorbell and ran like hell. Mr. Denny, opening the door and finding the blaze, proceeded to stomp it out vigorously, with the aforementioned droppings flying in all directions, including all over his shoes and pants. On another Halloween night, these same jaybirds sneaked into his garage and chained the front bumper of his car to the end of the garage. Then they called his house, and in the most adult voice they could muster, informed his wife that it was the police department calling. She was told that a folder had been found with Mr. Denny's name on it, that it looked to contain test papers, and could he come get it immediately. Now, so the story goes, Mr. Denny had indeed given a test that day and assumed, correctly as it turned out, that he had locked the test papers in his desk at school. Since it was Halloween, however, he also assumed that as a prank, some of us rounders had filched the test papers and the police had somehow recovered them. So out to his car he went, and imagine his surprise when, after backing about 3 feet, his car was brought to a sudden and teeth-jarring halt. The offenders, hiding in the bushes nearby, were no doubt very pleased with themselves, as our English teacher, when he discovered why his car was so immobile, was heard to utter the types of words and phrases more characteristic of a salty sailor than an erudite and cultured educator. I don't know whether Mr. Denny ever found out who the perpetrators were. The rest of us surely knew, because those exploits became a cause célèbre around our small school. Mr. Denny died a few years ago. I hope he knew that despite the practical jokes, a whole generation of kids turned out a whole lot better because of his dedication, determination, and encouragement. My own Halloween escapade involved 3 of my good buddies, a '54 Chevy, and a bottle of ketchup. Now, having reached the exalted age of 16 and acquired that most precious of documents, a driver's license, Mom and Dad got me a car. It was an old green 4-door 1954 Chevy Granny Mobile. That's what my girlfriend called it, but hey, it was mine. Halloween evening found Bronny, Keith, Bobby, and me cruising town with not much to do and time on our hands. Always a dangerous combination. To this day, it remains unclear exactly who thought it up, but we decided to have a little innocent fun. We stopped in at the grocery and bought a bottle of ketchup. We then drove my car around behind the store. Bronny sort of volunteered, so he climbed into the trunk while we poured ketchup all up and down his arm. Then, with his bloody arm hanging out, we lowered the trunk lid and proceeded to drive around town. Now, the trick is to know when enough is enough. After several slow circuits around the Dairy Mart, see, McDonald's had yet to arrive in our fair town, we noticed that one gentleman's eyes dilated quite impressively as we cruised by. He immediately pulled out and followed us up Main Street, all the while peering closely at the arm of the victim in our trunk. When he stopped in front of the police station, it should have been a clue that it was time to pack it in and head for the tall timber. But sometimes that inner voice, which keeps saying, "One more time," is so persuasive that one errs not on the side of reason, but rather on the side which falls directly into the category of stupidity and borders on that of insanity. So back we went for one more swing through town before calling it a night, when who should appear in my rear view mirror than the Fuzz. As I recall, Bobby was sitting in the back seat, and so he started hollering to Bronny to get his arm inside, quick. Now, no doubt the police saw the arm suddenly withdraw into the trunk and could pretty well figure out at that point what was going on. Maybe that's why they didn't turn on their lights or siren. We took the first turn up a side alley, but the patrol car quickly swung through a parking lot and headed us off. Now the lights did come on, maybe just to scare the bejesus out of us. And if that was the case, they succeeded beyond their wildest expectations. Since the police car was in front of us, Bronny jumped out of the trunk, and we all piled out as the officers approached us. Now, being a small town, the policemen recognized us immediately, and if they hadn't already, they sized up the situation. They knew us, and they knew our families, and they knew we were not really homicide material, but just to teach us a lesson, they used their most authoritative voices in advising us that a murder had been reported and that a car matching the description of mine had been reported as having a dead body in the trunk. Of course, we tried our best looks of incredulity along with statements that we knew absolutely nothing about it. Bronny, in the meantime, was trying to wipe his arm off in the grass. One of the officers walked over and picked up some of the ketchup on his finger. "Blood here, Carl," he announced in a grave voice. "Yeah, and here too," answered his partner, wiping some of the ketchup from the trunk lid. At this point, 4 young boys are sure they will spend the rest of their natural lives behind bars. Or worse, these guys might call our parents. I suppose the 2 officers saw that we were on the verge of tears, for one of them put his finger in his mouth and with a grin said, "Cannibals too. Did you have fries with that bloody arm, boys?" We then proceeded to give those 2 officers a good listening to, with the usual warnings about behaving ourselves. Now, assured that our parents would not be notified, we were so relieved that we determined never to pull another bloody arm escapade, and we didn't either. Instead, we drove over to Mr. Denny's and rolled his house in toilet paper.